Welcome to This Week in BJJ, the only show running the gamut of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and running it live every Friday night.
Oh, he just wrote that?
Hello guys, welcome to a new episode of This Week in BJJ. I'm Budo Jake, and today is June 29th, 2012. I'm joined with Budo Dane.
Hey guys.
And also we have a special guest, Kevin Howell.
Thanks, Jake.
So before we get started, I want to remind you guys that we do have a live chat room just below the video screen. If you're watching this live, you can select a name and join us in there. If you have any questions for us or comments, feel free to put them in there, and we'll relay the questions to our guest and discuss it online. Also, we have a new email address. If you want to email us any questions for future episodes, that email address is twibjj@BudoVideos.com. So we're here with Kevin tonight, and Kevin is actually one of the first guys that I met when I started Jiu-Jitsu 7 years ago. And just you've always been a great friend and a really nice guy, not to mention incredibly talented. I can't believe it took you so long to get your black belt. But now that you have it, how's that feel?
To be honest, going through this whole process, I did think maybe a year or so ago I was expecting it more. And so at the point when I honestly thought I was going to get my black belt, when it didn't happen, I just kind of threw that whole thought away and just kept training. And even though things would change and I would come upon having to train with a new instructor, new mentors and things like that, I just focused on myself, kept training, and I actually had to throw away this kind of idea of the black belt because it wasn't anything that was going to drive me crazy, and I wasn't competing regularly anyway, so I didn't really see the need to have to get it maybe back when I thought I was going to get it. But when I got it, it was very fulfilling. I actually broke down and cried in front of everybody, and so I remember getting up there emotional, and Andre's talking to me, and he goes, "Hey Kevin, don't worry, I cried too," and so that's a good thing for the internet world to know, is that Andre cried during his black belt too. But it was something where when you spend so much time in anything, I felt like a huge weight on me at the same point of all this emotion, and I really thought I was going to be able to hold it together. But I'm also the guy who cried at my wedding, so it was hard for me to kind of keep it together. And still today, you'll hear a lot of cliches of everything starts over at black belt and everything becomes different. Well, that hasn't happened yet. I'm still trying to submit my students, and they're still doing a good job of submitting me. I'm still trying to learn every day, but I never think I got to that point where I felt like I was a total badass and that I need to have this reset in my life, because there's still so much I have to learn about. Right now, I'm really focused on trying to learn footlocks. It's been a huge weakness of me. I had ACL surgery on my knee, and ever since then, anyone grabs a toe hold or a heel hook, I tap instantly. So one thing I've been trying to work on is not doing things that I like to do. So I've just been trying to kind of expose different things, and it's good because now my students are. I had one of my students move up to brown belt horse, and now every time I roll with horse, I try to toe hold him, and so he's trying to toe hold me, and so we kind of get in these little footlock wars. But I trust him, so he's not going to send me home with another ACL surgery. But yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it means a lot to me. I'm certainly very proud of it, and I would rank it above any academic achievement or honestly book sales or anything like that. I think the black belt meant a lot more to me than all of that, especially after spending over a decade in jiu-jitsu. It just felt like, wow, that's cool, it actually happened. So I'm just very proud of it. I'm very happy with it.
What does it mean for you to be not just a black belt, but an Andre Galvao black belt?
Well, this is interesting. I met Andre probably around, let's see here, me and you were training in 2005. So it'd have to be around late 2006 or 2007 that we started kind of hanging out. And I met him at New Breed Academy. He was training at Johnny's, and all of Brazza camp was there. And I'd already had my book deal with Salo and Dave Camarillo. And people don't know this. I just released the Dave Camarillo book, but that was the first book deal I ever had. And it just took us the longest because Dave's a perfectionist, and me and Dave would we would be a roller coaster getting that book done. But at the end, it's also the book I'm most proud of. But we'll talk about that later.
So was it wars between you guys in terms of making edits and stuff like that?
Yeah, but the thing with Dave is he's a total perfectionist.
Right.
And he's probably one of the smartest guys I know. He's incredibly driven. He's incredibly successful. I think he makes great athletes in terms of guys who can compete well in the gi, no gi, teach well. He knows all the concepts and theories. He's also very humble. But when you roll with them, he can just brutalize you.
Right.
The guy is phenomenal. But, yeah, with Dave, it would always be like I would be going one way with the book, or I would miss a drive up to Tracy to shoot, and he'd be super pissed at me. And then we would kind of miss our signals, and we couldn't get together or something. But at the end of the day, he was always like my biggest fan. And he's a guy who still to this day, I really cherish the time with him. I learned so much with him, and he's one of these guys that flies under the radar. I think everyone knows who Dave Camarillo is, but they may not understand really the level of jiu-jitsu he has, or how smart he is about it. He's already, to me, proven himself as a great coach because his students have done so well. Yeah. I know Matt Darcy competes well and does lots of tournaments too.
Yeah, I remember back, probably 6 years ago, you, Budo Dave, and I all went to a Dave Camarillo seminar.
Yes, at OCK.
Yep, that was a great
that
seminar.
Concludes this installment.
I brought Dave a picture of it.
Right.
So hopefully it's flashing above someone's faces, or someone's getting fired today.
Right.
But over at OCK, yeah, Dave used to teach. There we are. There's my beard, protest beard. Dave taught at OCK. Like he'd come in with Chuck Jefferson, and they'd do special seminars. And I was training at Orange County Judo right before I was training with you guys at Gracie Baja. Mm-hmm. And so he came with Chuck, but before that, Dan Camarillo was coming down, and he would train there, I believe it's like once or twice a week. And that really blew my mind too.
Right.
Another master of arm bars, very slick jiu-jitsu. Another guy that people don't talk enough about.
Mm-hmm. Despite having a great performance at the Pan. He had a flying triangle at the Pan.
Dan Camarillo did?
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah. The Pan of the world, one of the two.
I was watching the live cast, so right. I didn't flip it. Well,
you weren't able to watch all 12 mats at once?
No, well, I watch on the PlayStation, so when I click it buffers, and then it asks me a question. Do you want to run the plugin? I have to hit yes, and then it buffers again.
Right.
So if ever, like, I'll see on the forum, oh, this person's fighting on this mat, by the time I'm clicking, it's my PlayStation's fault, if anything. So I should just watch it on my laptop.
Right. So, Kevin, I don't think I introduced you properly. You're not
Sure.
just a martial artist, not just a black belt, but you have your own school, Jiu-Jitsu League in Long Beach. Is that an Atto school, or
Yeah, it is an Atto school. We're under Andre Galvaz's association formally. Andre comes through. We get usually during the World's Pan Ams, we have some type of an Atos guy coming through. Mostly because we're down the street from the pyramid. Mm-hmm. So this year actually was really cool. We keep our doors open to everybody. It's been something, kind of a dream of mine ever since I started to train, was to see less politics in jiu-jitsu. I understand how important the team dynamic can be, but it was great to see. The highlight for me was Anthony Perosh was on the mat. And so for those that don't know about him, he's a UFC veteran. He actually has been winning in UFC. And a long time ago, I want to say in the mid-2000s, not that long ago, but in the mid-2000s, he would go and compete, and he was doing what people were calling the Perosh flip. And he's a Carlos Machado black belt, I believe. So don't quote me on it unless someone can fact check me. But I got to sit there and talk to him about what's the Perosh flip. And one of the things I realized is he's really long. His legs are like up to here on me. And so he taught me some kind of cool things. And at the same time on our mats, we had guys from Lloyd Irvin's, from Atos. We had Carlson's, Caporal, Gigante training. Some of their underbelts that came from Carlson's academy. Let's see here. We had some guys from Lovato's gym, and then, of course, all of our students. And everyone just got along so well. And it kind of reminded me of what happens in the world of judo, where people go out and they train together, and then they'll go fight in the Parisian tournament or the Russian tournament or whatever it is. and then they go out to camps and they still train together. And I thought that was a really cool dynamic that people, in fact, kind of a cool anecdote. Caporal was training, and we had a visitor, a Brazilian black belt who's living in Sweden, not a part of our team. He's actually part of Edson Carvalho's team, and he was training with us, and Caporal was rolling with him. And I think Caporal may have submitted him or something. And Caporal walks up to me and he goes, "Hey Kevin, where's he train at? Or what belt or what weight class?" I'm like, "Oh, I think he's black belt light." And I'm like, "Well, what weight class are you, Caporal?" And he's like, "Oh, black belt light." "Well, do you train with him?" He's like, Yeah, no problem. And it was kind of cool that like these guys who would prospectively fight each other would actually roll with each other, and it's not a tournament in the academy, right. So I don't see there's really any real fault in what happened or what transpired.
Or like technically when they have everything to lose by rolling with each other, but they did it anyway.
It was really cool. Yeah. It was really cool. So yeah, to answer your question, we are a part of Andre's team. So we wear an Atos patch when we fight in the Worlds or the Pan Ams. But in the smaller events, like the NABJJF, things like that, we enter our students as the Jiu-Jitsu League.
Right. So not only that, but you also have produced a number of best-selling books.
Yes.
Let's go through the list. I know the first one was the Dave Camarillo book.
No. The first one that had signed. The first one released was Solos.
Was that first?
Yeah, Jiu-Jitsu University was first.
Wow. Okay. And that one has done incredibly well. Definitely a top seller at Budo Videos.
Oh yeah. It's actually. I joke around with my students that they're training in a place built on the royalties of that book.
Right.
Yeah. So that book has been a great success.
So you got Jiu-Jitsu University with Salo, then you got the Dave Camarillo book.
Yes.
And then what came out after that?
Well, so the original chronology is how they were signed. It was Camarillo, Salo, Galvao, Leo Vieira. And that was like my first batch of books. Now I have a secondary batch of books that I'm going to work on over the next 25 years. Okay. Because I'm notoriously slow. Okay. But with releases, we released Salo first. And then afterwards, we came out with Drill to Win with Galvao. And then Camarillo's. And right now, we're actually just about finished with Leo Vieira's book, which is a no-gi guard passing book. And so through all of those, it's been interesting. Like whenever I write a book, my jiu-jitsu changes a lot because I start thinking more like, no. This is the cool way to do it, or this is the way I should try it. But Solos was a great way to start.
We're getting a question in the chat from Jedi Swayze asking if the project with Terere is still going to happen.
Yes, it is. In all honesty, I heard he had some problems again, and last I heard he was back in Brazil, but I've been getting Facebook messages from him again. So hopefully he's, fixing his life and getting everything together, because certainly I wouldn't want to ever be a part of his problems. Right. So, I think things like this happen when you're ready for them to happen, and there's no real hurry because I don't think the quality of his knowledge or skills are really degrading. But to answer Jedi Swayze, which is awesome. To answer Mr. Swayze, I would say it hasn't been photographed yet. So usually I don't put my eggs into it until it's been shot. But we do have the contract, everything's signed and ready to go. And I think he'll be awesome because he's a guy. He was probably one of the first guys, along with Jacare, that I really, really looked up to in terms of their athleticism and how easy they made jiu-jitsu look.
Right. For those who don't know who Terere is, the teacher of Cobrinha, Galvao, Leo Vieira. Yeah. Incredible guy.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah, we have books lined up with Terere, with Braulio, with Lloyd Irvin. Oh, wow. And then on the prospective future, I'd also like to do with Rafael Lovato Jr. I'm trying to introduce more with what the Americans are doing as well, because I think it's unnecessary to only hero worship the other guys. I mean, they've all achieved so much, but there's also guys like Lovato and Lloyd who are also achieving a lot in their own rights.
Can you say what the Lloyd book might be about?
That's a super secret one. Okay. That's a super secret one. So I think that book is I'll say it's long overdue. So it's from what we've talked about, what he's kind of discussed about what he's what he's willing to put into it, and our back and forths, I wouldn't expect anything less than a huge seller.
That'd be really interesting to see because he's an incredible coach.
And that's to me what really sets him apart.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of respect for to be honest, obviously Alliance is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Atos is awesome. Checkmat's awesome. Gracie Baja is awesome. But when you see smaller teams like Lloyd Irvin, who's kind of not isolated, but he's out in Maryland,
Yeah.
and through his network, he's producing constant colored belt champions. Not a lot of schools are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that really impressive. And on the other end, you got Rafael Lovato Jr., who's in the middle of the country. When we met, and I hope I'm not divulging too much, Rafael, if you're listening, but he told me a lot about how he never really had an instructor. He only had mentors. And to me, I look at Andre as a mentor for where I'm at in my jiu-jitsu, because I certainly can't train in San Diego often. But when I was thinking about this idea of mentoring, and he would only go to solos for maybe a weekend or a week, and then he's spending that next 2 months with his students.
Mm-hmm.
And through all these experiences and travels and competitions, he's produced a huge amount of champion level students at his academy. If you go on his site, you should check it out. There's a list of all of his accolades, and he's like one of 4 or 5 guys to win Euros, Nationals, Worlds and Pans in the same year. And the people that he ranks them, when you see it, who he's ranked around, it's guys like Bernardo Faria, Roger Gracie type level grapplers. And so I'm really impressed when I see an American doing that, because at the end of the day, being an American, that's the dream I have for my students. And my dream is for them to be able to achieve things that these other guys are doing. Now, that's not to take anything away from these other awesome Brazilian teams and things like that. But at the end of the day, just to see some groups that are really hardcore American teams doing it, it really impresses me. And it provides me a lot of hope that I can do the same thing.
Right. It's nice seeing that teams from North America aren't precluded from, taking home championships just because they're from North America and not from Brazil.
Sure. So, I mean, I always root for the hometown guys. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, I'm always rooting for our guys to do well. I have a lot of great relationships with a lot of Brazilian guys. But at the end of the day, I want to see Americans win in the worlds and stuff like that, too.
That leads me to a question, Kevin. Which do you think is better in a teacher? A world champion or someone who's really good at teaching?
I think someone who's really good at teaching.
You say that, but I know most of your teachers, and almost all of them were world champions.
Sure. But I also have guys that I've seen as mentors, even on small levels. Guys like Sean Williams, guys like John Danaher, who were really methodical, thoughtful, and smart, especially in regards to the detail that they teach. And then I've seen other, like when you take from wrestling, obviously guys like John Smith are champions, but when you look at the level of detail that John Smith is bringing, the level of attention, his training methods, I think it's pretty special what a lot of these other guys are doing as well. I think I'm talking a little bit in the circle, but that's okay. You'll get a lot of those out of me. But I think that the world championship for a lot of instructors certainly legitimizes them. But I don't know if it's necessarily right, because you're channeling so much of your focus and energy into winning a world championship. You're not necessarily channeling your energy into developing your skill set as an instructor, which can be different. Now, I'm not saying that a world champion can't be incredibly qualified to teach world champions, because obviously history proves that they can. But guys like Cobrinha, guys like I've seen Galvao, they've already created champions in their own right. But there's always the Phil Jackson out there. I mean, I might be botching my basketball history right now, but I'm not sure if Phil Jackson won too many world titles or championship rings, but he's had his hands on some of the best basketball dynasties ever, created that whole triangle offense thing. And I really think it's smarts that really carries you above. And honestly, and I don't know if this is kind of a polemic, but I think teaching methods are often more important than teaching moves. Because at the end of the day, I really think that what sets us apart as different academies is very small. We all still learn arm bars. I'm sure everyone in this room knows how to do a cross choke, but it's in how we really acquire the skills to do them and how we train them against each other that I think sets some of the schools apart a little bit more than others. Mm-hmm. But I think that comes with, a scientific approach to teaching, testing things, seeing what works, throwing away what doesn't work, maybe reinventing things over and over until you have a good method to create great grapplers.
Yeah, I know you're certainly a professional teacher, by trade.
So. Yeah, by trade, certainly.
So for all you guys out there, if you're ever in the Long Beach area, definitely check Kevin out.
Cool, awesome. I appreciate that, man. www.thejiu-jitsuleague.com.
Well played.
You like that?
Yeah. So Jake and I competed this weekend at an NA BJJF tournament. Mm-hmm. Do you know about them?
Yes, we just had we had 6 of our guys come and enter the same tournament.
Okay. They did well?
Yeah, we had we took home 4 golds, 1 silver, and for what I was more proud of than that was most of these guys, it was their first tournament. So we did have a blue belt medalist. We had a brown belt medalist, but most of our white belts went in and just took home their golds, went home. And then we had a few kids enter, and they both, I don't teach the kids, but they both medaled, and they did a great job under Coach Chris. So that's an interesting layout. I actually think there's something about that layout with the refs in the middle. Mm-hmm. I like being able to see the scoreboard from the sideline more easily. But it also kind of looks awkward because I've been conditioned to watch IBJJF tournaments where there's no one in the middle. But it was actually a well-run tournament. Our guys did really well. I thought it was pretty cool.
One of the funny things about the layout in the middle is one time, the last one that we did, I get up from my match, and I won in overtime. They raise our hand, and I look over to the mat across from me, and he's rolling.
Oh my gosh.
So I literally am like, yeah, and I run around the team, and I'm screaming, and they had to push me off to the side. But I watched him rolling as I stood up. But I thought it was a pretty well-run tournament. I mean, it didn't run very late.
Yeah, well, our guys fought pretty much within a half-hour window.
Right.
And I would consider that a pretty successful tournament. Mm-hmm. I still, to the end of me, because I don't run jiu-jitsu tournaments, I still don't understand why anyone ever runs late.
Right.
It's always going to just eat at me. It would be like watching a professional sports venue where they're like, sorry guys, Monday Night Football is going to start about 45 minutes late tonight. I just don't understand it. Oh, because the coach had to go pee. And so I just don't. I understand there's time limits, but to me it's still math. And I think you could, if you provide a very large window of time and you set people on a set schedule, at least for their first fights, I think it should be predictable.
Right, because that's the worst, especially your first competition. If you're sitting there waiting for your match and, just drawing out the anxiety before you go up.
For all my tournaments I ever did, the worst part for me personally, because I'm a head case.
Right. No, yeah, me too.
Is sitting there waiting and watching people, especially if you fight last. And then if everybody's winning, you're just like, oh, gosh, I better win.
Right.
And then if everybody's losing, you're like, oh gosh, I better win. so it doesn't go away either way. But
I joked with Jake, and I told him I joke that I hate every second of competing from when I sign up until after my first match. Then I'm completely in love with it.
How cool!
And then it lasts for another week, and then I sign up for the next one, and I completely hate it.
The feeling when it's over is so nice.
Oh yeah, and it's called eating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I cut for this one, and this is my first time at middleweight, and I of course went a little too aggressive on the last 2 days, and I had to weigh in at 177 my uniform, and I get on, and the scale's still bobbing at 171 to 172, and the coordinator was like, just get off, man, you're fine.
Oh my gosh.
So you said that you had some students that went up for the first time. Mm-hmm. I mean, the IBJJF events are great, and they're enormous, and it's good to compete on the big stage, but do you think I think there's value to the smaller venues.
Certainly.
The smaller ones. I mean, the NABJF is growing, but would you see that as sort of like a warm-up for a IBJJF event, or does it stand on its own?
Without a doubt, I would see it as a warm-up to IBJJF events. Usually when I see, and at this point, it looks like it's getting that way regardless of the event. I mean, if you're in Houston, you're fighting a lot of great grapplers. They're driving in from Oklahoma, all around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There's so many good academies. If you're in New York, clearly there's so many great academies in New York. I just think the IBJJF is it's drawing in the best competitors right now. And At the NABJJF events, sure, there's some great grapplers. In fact, my brown belt, he lost his finals match against Sean Roberts, and I'd consider him a great grappler. And I would say he's a guy who can go into IBJJF events and possibly win. But that being said, I didn't see a tournament filled with Sean Roberts. Whereas with the IBJJF, I think if you win one fight, you're beating a good guy.
Yeah.
When you fight your second fight, it doesn't let up from there. So I don't think there's really easy wins in either, to be honest, but more so in the IBJJF. I would say like it's certainly a lot more strenuous, a lot tougher than an in-house tournament.
Right.
But I don't think there's any other event right now that's on that level as say the IBJJF, just because of the amount of people traveling to go to the event. Right. And there's more prestige, I think, attached to winning IBJJF medals.
For sure.
So when you have students that are perhaps newer to competing, going into like an NABJJF tournament, what do you want their focus to be?
Well, to be honest, I don't even want them to compete until they've competed more in our in-house tournaments. I really want to prepare them. If competition is one of their goals, and a big thing about jiu-jitsu is competition is kind of like the public outlet of jiu-jitsu. It's what everyone gets to learn. That's where a lot of people are seeing, oh, my cousin's at this tournament, I'm going to go watch him fight in this tournament. But I really want to prepare our guys to be successful in it. So the first thing I'm looking for is for them to compete in-house where it's comfortable, they're fighting with their friends. At the end of the day, if they get their butts kicked, they can laugh it off and have a drink.
Right.
If, on the other hand, they win, they could be gracious in their win. They could learn a little bit about sportsmanship and get accustomed to winning.
Right. Now,
when they go out into a tournament, they understand that no one is undefeated in jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So if they go out and they beat the guy 17-0 or lose 17-0, they've already experienced both wins and losses in-house. And so they're a little bit more, I think, prepared for success in the tournament. They're not going to be nearly as nervous as if I just say, go fight. Go fight in the Worlds for your first tournament. So I just want our guys to be successful, and I want them to be mentally prepared for success as well.
In the greater context of jiu-jitsu, what do you think competition?
Well, I think competition is really the proving grounds of technique. So I don't think you can look at someone who's successful in the move and say that doesn't work. I think when something isn't competition proven, where he goes, no, this is Kevin Howell's magic armbar.
Right.
And everyone's like, I've never seen Kevin Howell's magic armbar at all in tournaments. So I think automatically that lessens your credibility. So I think you do get that from tournaments. But that being said, I also think that tournaments, you could win by focusing on a very, very small skill set. If you come in, obviously, with D1 wrestling skills, you take the guy down, scramble around everyone's guard and try to put him in the Kimura and stall in the Kimura or whatever your game plan is. That doesn't necessarily mean you have good escapes. Doesn't necessarily mean you have an understanding of the self-defense aspects of jiu-jitsu, or you have a good guard or an impassable guard, or even that those elements of passing can't be stopped if you were to have been put into a situation that's difficult for you. So a lot of the things about a competition aspect of jiu-jitsu, to me, are imposing your game on somebody else.
Right.
Now, a lot of the idealism of jiu-jitsu in an academy, and this isn't only true for mine, but for many different schools I've been through, a lot of that idealism is giving way to force. You have this kind of balance in your academy where if someone's trying to throw you, you roll them over your head and you effortlessly beat them. But sure, there's probably that level present in the tournaments, especially when there's a huge discrepancy in skill. But otherwise, I think the tournament is more about imposing your moves more than kind of bending and flowing. So I do think there's two aspects of jiu-jitsu that are present. But I don't necessarily say I'm going to put too much more weight in the competition other than or too much weight into the guys who just want to really learn how to kind of move with the force.
I mean, I ask because for instructors especially, it's easy to say it's not about winning or losing, it's about the experience. But experience is a pretty broad term.
Sure.
And actually nailing down what you're supposed to take away from it.
What you should take away from it. I guess one thing is humility is always good. So if you go in there with a humble mindset that jiu-jitsu itself can be a perfect martial art. These techniques with their leverage, with their movements, can be considered perfect movements. But it's us as infallible humans that screw it all up.
Right.
And so there's never a point where I think everything goes perfectly.
Right.
Oh, there we go. We moved over to some Shock Top lemon shandies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seasonal collection.
I'm excited.
Only the best.
Cheers,
for you,
guys.
Cheers.
Let's do this. But anyways, I do think that that with the tournaments, it's something that's also important for my students. I would recommend every single student to compete at least once. You get a different sensation than academy training, and I've seen plenty of world-class guys on the mat who, when they go into the tournament, they just dissolve under the pressure.
Right.
And I've also seen other guys in the mat where you go, that guy's a world champion.
Right.
Because in the academy, he's just kind of very loose and he's getting submitted. And then in the tournament, he turns into something totally different. But certainly, I think winning tournaments is great for people who are competitive by nature.
Right.
People who want to win things and achieve that. I certainly think when you go home after a gold, you feel a lot better than a first round loss.
Right.
And I think as an instructor, even though, I mean, I've never placed above third place. So for me, it's interesting having produced guys that are winning. But at the end of the day, I understand that that's their goal. Right. So I'm still here to help them facilitate that.
No, but I like that explanation where you said it's the. I mean, if you go into the tournament with the mindset of this is the ultimate proving ground for my technique.
Sure.
You know, you formulate your game plan, you go in there and do it.
I think a healthy idea for competitors is to go in there with an idea of what you want to achieve, and then look at it kind of like Final Fantasy for all those nerds out there, right? So you're gonna go in there and you're just trying to earn XP points.
Totally.
There we go. On whatever move you're working on. So if you're a deep half guy, and you go out there and you're like, I need to get like 20 more XP so I become a black mage.
Plus 10 deep half.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, plus 10 deep half with a little plus on the corner.
Like while you're there, it says plus one's flying up.
Yeah. And so and when you look like a competitor like Bernardo Faria, I'd imagine every single tournament he goes in there with the mindset of, I'm going to get to my game and win with my game. And now he's probably done that for so long, he medals and wins with his game.
I have no idea. Let me just say, I have no idea what you guys are talking about with the Final Fantasy stuff, but I agree that competition is great.
That's not true, Jake. That's not true. I've seen your video game collection.
Yeah, but competition, to me, is all about learning.
Sure.
So, speaking of learning,
Yes.
we've all been educated recently by a guy who I met in Chicago. His name is Tyler Bishop.
Okay.
He and his wife have a website called BJJ.com, and they've done a really interesting study on the last Worlds.
Okay.
Stats are something that we don't have in our sport. There's just not. I guess it's not big enough to have a lot of stats. But you watch baseball or any other sport, and there's stats all over the place. So what they did is they watched almost, I don't know how many matches, but a ton of black belt matches from the Worlds, and broke it down and came up with some really interesting statistics. I'm just going to read through a few of these here. They found out that the average match length was 7 minutes 4 seconds out of 10 minutes. So that means that most fights are not going the distance. If they're ending 3 minutes early, that means there's a submission. They also found that 48% were won by points, 48% by submission. And the other is like referee decisions. So that's basically saying half by points, half by submission. So that takes away the argument that some people are saying that there's less submissions these days.
Sure.
It's basically half and half. Then they also determined that 58% of the matches reached the ground in under 10 seconds. Not too surprising. The majority should reach the ground. This is jiu-jitsu, not judo. But the majority of those were from the lower weight classes. 80% of the rooster weights made it to the ground in under 10 seconds, but only 20% of the heavyweights did.
Sure.
Which is what you usually see.
Right.
You know, the small guys pull guard, the big guys take longer. 66% of the matches, one guy pulled guard. 24% of the matches, somebody was taken down, and 10% was a double guard pull.
Wow. It's funny hearing how much flack the double guard pull gets, well, that's only 10%.
Right.
Come on, guys. Yeah, let's pick on someone else.
That's right. You can see all those stats and more at BishopBJJ.com. They're going to be doing some rolling out some more stats from the tournament in the weeks to come.
By the way, I love this that there's someone's like producing empirical data on jiu-jitsu.
Sure.
To actually like ascertain the actual reality of what's happening in competition.
Yeah, because like we mentioned earlier, 12 mats are going on at the same time. There's no way to get an overall feeling of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, like with all the debate over 50-50 or double guard pull, to think that the submissions are still that high. Mm-hmm. I still think the purple belt's the funnest weight class to watch. I definitely agree with Andre Galval on that one. But I also think that jiu-jitsu is still getting pushed ahead so much faster. It's just like people, we're not getting dumber. We're getting smarter.
Yep.
I think we're improving in every aspect. We're getting stronger, faster, more athletic. And in jiu-jitsu, I think it's just going to follow the same suit. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting.
All right, guys, stay tuned. We still got a lot to talk about here with Kevin Howell. We'll be right back in a second.
Cool.
BudoVideos.com, home of the world's largest selection of quality jiu-jitsu kimonos. Show-your roll, storm, tatami, bull terrier, venom, and others. Styles from more than 30 top brands in stock and ready to ship. BudoVideos.com. You're only a click away from owning a new gi today.
Okay, guys, we're back. What do we got next, Dane?
So, Henner Gracie released a video, and he brought up a really good point. And in his defense, before I get into this, he was really fair about this. Especially coming from the Gracie Academy, we generally think that they're a heavily like self-defense oriented academy, and he very even-handed, acknowledged the merit in both. But I can't help but feel over the last year or two, there's been this sort of battle for the soul of jiu-jitsu between like the self-defense and combative aspect of jiu-jitsu versus the sport aspect. And it's always been this thing of you can't pull guard in the streets. So before we get, do you have a self-defense aspect to
Yeah,
your?
actually we do. All of our basic students have to start in self-defense. In fact, every single night, the way I've designed my program is that there's always at least one standing self-defense move. Sometimes there's 3 self-defense moves, often on the floor. And so for that length of time that they're in our basics curriculum, they're loaded with self-defense.
Right.
Now, the reason why for me is more that I love the intricacies of jiu-jitsu. I love how far you can go with it. But at the end of the day, I heard a great interview by Sean Williams, I might say, and he said, it'd be really embarrassing as a black belt if you couldn't escape a bear hug. And right. I'm sure out there's somebody who can't escape a bear hug. So whether or not you use it, I think it's important. Now, that being said, I have this student named Byron, and he works as a hospital orderly. And I think that week they were doing one of our wrist escapes where you turn the guy and you take them down to the ground. And it's got a little of an Aikido look to it. But he used the move on some crackhead in Long Beach that went and grabbed his gi or grabbed his scrubs, and he took him down, restrained him, help came, and he took care of himself. And this is a guy who'd been training jiu-jitsu for like a week and a half. Right. And to me, had he had to go pull spider guard and put him in an omoplata, it would have been a little bit harder. So I do think that we really attain our skill through that pull guard omoplata type of jiu-jitsu.
Right.
But to disregard the self-defense, I think, is a big mistake. And it's also to kind of throw away all of your history. Now, I think we have to test it and say, how much of this can we realistically recreate in sparring? But at the end of the day, I still believe there's worth in it because there's been other people other than Byron at my academy who've successfully defended themselves with some of these concepts. Right. So on a social level, I think it's just my responsibility to teach them self-defense. But in my advanced classes, there's literally no self-defense. But more often than not, you'll often you'll fall upon a technique. So you're in negative half guard and you face down and you scoop your knee high and you take the back. That's a lot like one of our Kesikatami escapes where you go over the shoulder. the same type of movement where you go face down and you end up on the back and they're kind of in the cop lock. There's probably about 1.5 people out there that understand what I just said. But that being said, I think that the concepts that we learn, because it's such a pure leverage type movement, it's great. And in fact, if you look at Eduardo Telles, you know the move we do at white belts where the guy bear hugs you from behind and you do this,
right.
You step behind him and you throw him over your back. Look at a bunch of Eduardo Telles' sweeps. And a lot of his sweeps kind of follow the same type of concept as that self-defense move. So they're certainly relevant, maybe difficult to spar at times, though.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember thinking that when I was sort of mulling this over mentally, and they're saying, you know, a lot of people are getting the self-defense aspect, and I've had a little bit of it. I mean, we've had a bit of that at my academy, and I remember thinking, you know, now that I haven't trained self-defense in probably years, sure. I remember thinking it's just application. If I were to get in a fight in the streets, it would be applications of principles. Mm-hmm. You know, okay, so in sport, I would, you know, try and do this to go for a sweep, but I obviously don't want to do, you know, like hold them close so I don't get punched.
Well, you always want to start with a flying triangle.
Always.
Always.
As soon as I see concrete, I have to resist myself.
I knew a guy who said, and I don't know if it's a tall tale, but he said he pulled guard in a fight, and I submit him with like an armbar triangle. Oh, come on, man. Please.
Right.
I think that's a misconception that people think, oh, you do sports jiu-jitsu, oh, you're going to pull guard in the street.
Well, to be honest, I don't even think we need to. I think the majority of the people out there who aren't training in any martial art, I mean, if a jiu-jitsu guy or a Muay Thai guy or a karate guy
right.
or a taekwondo guy fights some drunk at the bar, I think they're grossly mismatched. So to be honest, I don't believe I need to be a D1 wrestler to take down some idiot at a bar.
Right.
Yeah.
That being said, I think Henner did have some good points that some guys that focus exclusively on sport at a school that might never do self-defense,
sure,
you're kind of losing the essence of the art.
And I know Fabio Gurgel has come on many interviews and said he teaches people there's the same self-defense basics curriculum that he learned from Jacare, who he learned from Holes, and so on and so forth. And he's obviously produced and what I mean by produce is white to black belt.
Yeah.
Some great champions such as like Tarsus Humphreys, who's obviously very well rounded.
Right.
So I would say it's working for him.
Yep. I know at Gracie Baja in the beginning, I did a lot of self-defense. All the beginners do, and whether it's standing techniques or dealing with strikes from the ground and all that. And I think it had a lot of value at that time. That being said, years later, I have no interest in going back and doing any more of that.
So if I put you in a headlock right now, you gonna be able to get out of there?
I think I could get out of it.
All right. But see, there we go.
But I mean, there's elements of that even in sport jiu-jitsu. The whole scoring system is based upon, you know, like why side mount is such an advantageous position is not necessarily because there's all these submissions from there, but because someone could hit you and you couldn't hit them. Yeah. Which made me think, I kind of wanted to flip the script. I think competition could prepare you for a street confrontation if need be, because you're essentially fighting someone that you don't
sure.
know or may have never seen before in a high stress environment, where there's actually something on the line. And there's not a one-to-one comparison. It's
yeah.
Do you agree? Or
yeah, I'd say it's far closer to a street fight than sparring in the academy is. Yeah. You know, without a doubt.
Right.
Because when I've trained in the academy, I'm not stressed out at all.
Right.
I feel fine. Now that being said, I have known guys who have the runs before training. And I'm going, man, are you kidding me? Like, you're paying $100 to have the runs right now? Come on. So, anyways.
All right, next topic on deck is the World Master and Seniors Tournament.
Yes.
That was a tournament that has been held in Brazil. It's called the International Masters and Seniors Tournament. It's held every year in Brazil. Now they're going to have an American version called the World Masters and Seniors Tournament. Of course, people that don't know what that means, masters are people over 30 years old, seniors over 35. Right. So what's the relevance of this tournament to you guys?
Dane, let's start with you.
Being a master, I'm actually really excited about this because the prospect of entering at the tender age of 33 with a full-time day job to compete with, you know, adult blue belts at 170 pounds or 175 pounds is pretty intimidating because I know a lot of these guys, what they do is train.
Sure.
They may teach classes at the academy or they may have a side or a night job, but what they do is train. And while I would not want to say I couldn't compete, I'm pretty realistic about my prospects.
Sure. And
so it may be a one-match day for me, whereas something where the masters and seniors, I think it would be more of an even playing field for me. And really attractive.
Same for me. I mean, that's the one tournament I've told my students that I would love to do, whether it's in Brazil or here, mostly because at the black belt level, you're fighting guys who, when you look at your age group, it's like, oh my gosh, that's Solo right there. And you'll be fighting guys like, oh wait, there's Leo Vieira in my bracket. Now, my only concern, of course, and it's obviously the same concern that when the world's first moved here, is those guys at that level are probably teaching, probably living in Brazil, have life taking over. Hopefully they can come out here and compete so that we really, for the Americans, we get to fight the legends of the sport in our weight class. But I'm sure plenty will show up.
Sure. So it's October 7th, Kevin. Can we count you in?
That's my birthday.
All right.
Really?
That's my birthday.
What a great reason to do it.
You know what? The best reason is Oktoberfest afterwards.
In lieu of a birthday party.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. So actually, Haley was telling me that earlier. She's like, you know what? If you do it, you're going to go through all your cutting, and then you'll fight, and then we're heading straight over to Old World Huntington Beach for our Oktoberfest.
Sounds
and
like
you'd be a cheap date,
That
too, after
sounds cool.
cutting.
I know. I'd be trashed.
You, Jake, would you want to do it?
Yeah, I think we should all do it.
Yeah.
I'm in.
All
That'd be fun.
Team Budo.
You have to get me some patches.
Sure thing.
If only there was a place around here somewhere where we could buy jiu-jitsu gear.
It's interesting. I heard this a couple places. There's this one Musashi on the corner.
Amazing.
It's on Beach Boulevard. It's a small operation, mom and pop.
So
Dave's gonna kill me.
Evil eyes all around.
Yeah. I think that one was a game stopper.
So we've been graced with 2 new black belts this week and a brown belt. We have Nija Easton from Team Lloyd Irvin, right?
Yep.
Team Lloyd Irvin, and then the famous Joe Rogan from 10th Planet got his black belt.
Yes.
Announced on Twitter. And this is the one that waiting.
We're gonna see a picture of Joe Rogan first. There we go. Getting this black belt from Eddie Bravo.
Awesome.
And we got a clip. Actually,
have a clip?
Yeah. Let's check it out.
Joe Rogan!
Looking like Batman.
Congratulations on your black belt. Seriously, one of the proudest moments of my life. Out of all the shit I've ever done, this is, becoming really good at jiu-jitsu is probably one of the most difficult things a person can do. And I think it helps me with everything I do. I think the more I train and the more I meet people who are in jiu-jitsu, and Eddie and I talk about this shit all the time, people who are in jiu-jitsu and train on a regular basis, they're healthier people. Their egos are healthier, especially men. They're easier to talk to. They're easier to hang out with because they're facing reality on a regular basis. It's something my Taekwondo teacher told me when I was a little kid that I never forgot, was that martial arts are a vehicle for developing your human potential. And nothing in my life has ever put me in face with reality better than jiu-jitsu. Because I think, in life we can all distort our perception of things in order to make ourselves more comfortable, in order to make ourselves accept where we are. And there's a lot of people out there that are running around life full of shit. You can't be full of shit when you do jiu-jitsu. When you do jiu-jitsu, it's impossible to be full of shit because reality comes at you in the purest form possible. A life or death struggle using your determination, your focus, your techniques, your mind, and your training, and over and over and over again. And it's reality. And if you fuck up and you get caught in a triangle, you've got to tap, and that is the end of the story. It's as real as can get, and that has made me a better person. It has made me a better man. It's made me understand myself, my weaknesses, my strengths, the shit I need to work on. Jiu-jitsu has been one of the most valuable tools that I've ever had in my life. That's it. Thank you.
Nice speech there.
Very cool. Very cool.
I like what he said about reality. It's inspiring. That's real.
Yeah, certainly.
I mean, that's probably one of the things that hooked us, right?
Yep.
you rolled with some guy, and no matter what you did, you're getting, you're either getting choked or something was getting bent out of place.
Instant feedback.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
And then we had another brown belt, and this is a question after the Worlds with and Keenan Cornelius got his brown belt, and so he's been dominating the purple belt division. I mean, submissions up and down the bracket, and I think the big question is everyone's saying, well, how would he do at brown belt? How would he do at brown belt? And we're all going to find out.
Certainly.
Which begs the question: how do you think he's going to do at brown belt?
I think he's going to win. Yeah, I think he's going to win. From my understanding of Keenan is that he deserves to win. He trains more than everybody, more consistently, probably a lot harder than your layman can train, and he's probably training more than the people he beats.
Right.
So I would imagine continued success.
Yeah, I've seen him in the academy tapping out black belts multiple times, so
Yeah.
I think he'll do great at brown belt.
Did you compete at purple and brown belt?
I didn't compete at purple.
Okay.
No, I competed white and blue and brown. So I actually skipped purple. That was a big void in my life.
Well, we talked about that. How the brown belt division's actually pretty
It's usually pretty small.
small.
Yeah.
One of the shorter belts.
But we'll see how that goes.
Right. Next up is Carlson Gracie Jr. episode of Rolled Up is coming out next Tuesday or Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. We filmed that in Chicago a little earlier this year, and Carlson was just the nicest guy, really cool dude, and showed us around Chicago and took us to his academy, and he's just a really talented guy. We had a really good time. Let's check out a clip, a little preview of the next episode of Rolled Up in a second here. In the meantime, what do you guys, when you guys think of Carlson Gracie, what do you think?
Senior or junior?
Carlson Gracie team. What image comes to your head?
I think of smashing people on top.
Crushing top game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what was in my head when I met Junior. I thought, man, this guy's going to be a hard ass. But he was exactly the opposite. He was a teddy bear.
Yeah.
He was the nicest dude.
What were the guys like that you rolled with?
And those were the smashers. Yeah, they were very physical, very strong, for sure.
I remember seeing an old fight of him. I think it was, maybe he's fighting Lewis. John Lewis in it.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those early formative years of jiu-jitsu in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, John held onto the cage.
Yeah, held on to the cage, did not get taken down.
Right. All right, let's take a look at the clip here. So Carlson, your son has the unique distinction of being the first Japanese Gracie. Does that have any special meaning to you?
I think it's like Jiu-Jitsu started in Japan, that's why it's a really, it started in India, went China to Japan, but got stronger in Japan. And, so much story about the Gracie family against the Japanese. So my wife is Japanese, my son is born in Japan. It's a unique story, he got the look at half a Brazilian, half a Japanese. I think he don't have idea, but it's unique, I feel proud of that, First Gracie Japanese, Carlson Gracie Neto.
Love that.
I'm done here, people.
So yeah, that should be up on Wednesday, July 3rd, so stay tuned for that. And one more thing before we go to the mats here. There is a promo running tonight at midnight, and it's going to run for a week. It's free shipping, free ground shipping on BudoVideos.com. Any order over $90 placed between June 29th through July 6th qualifies for free ground shipping.
When you think about it, an order of $90, shipping could actually be pretty significant.
Yeah, a gi, and you're there.
Right.
Enter the code SHIPFREE in the coupon field for free shipping in the U.S. All right, well, I think we're going to head out to the mats right now. We'll be there with Kevin Howell, and I'm sure he'll show us something cool.
It's going to be amazing.
All right. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
BudoVideos.com, home of the world's largest selection of quality jiu-jitsu kimonos. Show Your Roll, Storm, Tatami, Bull Terrier, Venom, and others. Styles from more than 30 top brands in stock and ready to ship. BudoVideos.com. You're only a click away from owning a new gi today.
Okay, guys. Technique I want to talk to you guys right now is something I've been doing a lot since blue belt, and it's a cross sweep. So first I want to kind of trace why I do what I do, And it all started for me from closed guard, okay? Now, a lot of people, they like to come here and drop, and they do what they call the flower sweep, where you de-weight the leg and come to here. And so from that, I started doing it from like a foot on the hip. And so from the foot on the hip, I felt like I could generate more force both directions. So in the same token that I can still knock Dane off balance using the foot on the hip, now I could also use bridging motions. And for me being really short, this always really paid off. So from here, I would go foot on the hip, grab as if I was gonna go flower sweep, and then bridge. And then as I bridged, if Dane checked his weight on the floor, then I would reach over and continue the bridging motion until I came up onto the mount. So this was kind of the start for me for the flower sweep and kind of like the cross-gripping guard. Even now when I get in trouble, I almost instinctively play with the cross-grip guard. But then I started opening up my legs more. And I believe I was taught this originally from Marcio Feitosa, which is come over, and now when we're playing in an open guard, my leg comes over, you go to your knees, and you sit up, kind of like Holetta was doing in the 90s. So to make it a little more simple, me fighting bigger guys, I'm pretty short, I'm not the heaviest guy in the academy. A lot of times when I'd go for that, I would get stuck from the guy posturing this way. So I'd come over and I'd be kind of in this kind of goofball position, and obviously I'd have to come back and attack omoplatas and triangles and so on. But to be honest, I've always loved sweeping, so my goal was still to sweep. So what I like to do, and there's like a spectrum of how big of a jerk you want to be. Obviously, I like to be a little bit nicer to my training partners, but in a tournament setting, you can really kind of karate chop it a little bit harder. But I would go the same cross grip, holding the pants. Have I ever grabbed illegally inside? Yes, and I try not to, but even to this day, sometimes I instinctively grab illegally. But otherwise, I try to cup inside, pistol grip, or grab what I can. But now from here, I have this type of foot on the hip cross guard. I like to bring my shin here. So this time I'm going to do the same bridging motion as my blue belt version, but I'm going to try to hook Dane's head towards the floor. So as I have my bridge, now the hook comes down. And you kick him to the floor. And for me, that version of the cross guard, I still do it every week or so. Like there's a guy, we have this guy Brandon at our academy, big, heavy guy. And with him, you have to really get him over because he's 300-pounder. And even on those guys, for us shorter people where you don't want to get stuck in the rolling type of game under someone, pulling their head over kind of makes sense because their bodies have to follow their head. So one more time. So we can still play with our normal foot on the hip style cross guard, but instead now I'm going to bend my knee and I'm going to bring my hook really close to Dane's head. Now the rest is the bridge. Bridge up and then kick down. Come up. Now from here, obviously we have our submissions. And we can keep the game going. This is one of my favorite moves. And to this day, it's one of the sweeps I do most often in the academy.
Very cool, Kevin.
Cool.
I want to thank you for coming in today.
Awesome.
It's always good hanging out with you.
Cool. Can I give a shout out real quick?
Absolutely.
I'd like to thank my friend Dallas for giving me this 1914 gi. Real cool company, American guys out in the middle of Oklahoma. So that's for you, Dallas. And all my friends, family at Jiu-Jitsu League, love you guys. Sorry I missed Drill to Win. Blame Jake. Okay?
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday with a new episode of This Week in BJJ. Keep on rolling.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. That concludes this installment of This Week in BJJ. Subscribe on iTunes, watch and review past episodes, and then be sure to join us again next Friday night, right here for another live edition of This Week in BJJ.